Welcome back to this video series. We are looking at 10 most repeated topics in biology UTME. In the previous video, we're already looking at the questions, 20 questions from the 10 most repeated topics in biology UTME. And in our last video, we looked at question 8. So we're going to continue from what? From question 9 in this particular video. So are you excited? Let's go. The next two questions are going to come from the topic reproduction. So question 9, in the diagram below, birth control by vasectomy is achieved by severing the structure labeled I, II, and IV. And the structure here we can see is the male reproductive system. The male reproductive system. We have the male reproductive system. So quickly, we are going to look at I. We're going to label it. Label I, label II, label III, and we're going to label IV. So looking at this, I is the ureter. We have II as the prostate. The prostate gland. We have III, the vas deferens. Vas deferens. So that's the sperm duct. And we have IV as the urethra. Now, severing this means cutting it off, or not off, but just cutting it to prevent the linkage of sperm, to prevent the passage of sperm from where it is being produced to other parts of the reproductive system and even to outside the reproductive system. So the sperm cells don't pass from where it's produced to the female genital, which might now lead to fertilization and childbirth. So what has to be severed? What has to be cut? Imagine you cut the part labeled I. Will it prevent sperm from moving here? No, it won't. Definitely our answer is not ureter. Now let's look at prostate gland. Prostate gland is a gland, and cutting it off won't prevent the movement of sperm from where it's produced to other parts. So now let's look at vas deferens, or the sperm duct. We have this. If it's severed, if it's cut, you can see very well that it will prevent the flow of sperm from from the testis here, the epididymis, to prevent the flow from the testis to outside for fertilization. So you see, if the urethra, the IV, the urethra is cut, it means you have to cut the male gonad. It means you have to cut the penis. And if you do that, you are definitely castrating the male here. So that's not what we're trying to achieve. We want the male here to still enjoy sexual pleasure while preventing birth of child. So we can see that the answer here is going to be III, which is C. That's a good one. So now let's move to the next question. And the next question here, the type of reproduction that is common to both yeast and hydra, to both hydra and yeast, is A, grafting, B, budding, C, conjugation, D, binary fission. Now grafting is a vegetative propagation, usually in flowering plants. So you can see that neither hydra nor yeast are flowering plants. So therefore, grafting is not common in both. But now let's look at budding. If we have the hydra here, let me draw hydra. You have hydra with its tentacles. This is the parent hydra. Then if there is an outgrowth here, budding is usually an outgrowth. We have an outgrowth here. This is the progeny. This is budding, and you can see it's exhibited in hydra. We also have yeast cells, circular like this, and it has an outgrowth here. You can see. So this is budding. This is definitely budding. And you see, budding is common in both hydra and yeast. And now let's look at, so you can see that the answer is B, budding. But now let's look at conjugation and binary fission. Conjugation is usually a form of sexual reproduction that occurs in spirogyra. You have binary fission. If you have an organism here, let's say you have the protist amoeba, and it splits into two. You have the amoeba 1, you have the amoeba 2. So it's split into 2. This is binary fission. We have binary 2 and fission splitting. It splits into 2. You can see that the answer here is budding. So moving on to question 11. Moving to question 11, we are going to be looking at the topic here. The topic here is going to be heredity. Now, question 11 and question 12 will be under the topic heredity. Now, if both parents are heterozygous for a trait, you say both parents are heterozygous for a trait, the probability that an offspring will be recessive for that is what? Now, if a parent is, let's use being a red color plant as the trait, and both parents are heterozygous, we're going to have capital R, which is, the capital means is dominant, the small means is recessive. We have capital R and small r, capital R and small r, both parents. So we have parent A will cross capital R, will get to capital R, we have both capital R will get to small r, we have capital R, small r will get to capital R, we have capital R, small r will get to small r, we have small r. This shows homozygous dominant, heterozygous, and homozygous recessive. So you can see definitely that the answer is going to be 1 here, all over the 4 of them, all over 4. You can see the probability of that offspring being recessive for the trait is going to be 1 over 4. So we have our answer as B. Now we're going to be looking at the last question for this particular video. Now let's go. Question 12. When women do not suffer from color blindness, because the trait is sex linked, because only men are colorblind, the genes are recessive and sex linked. The genes occur on both the X and the Y chromosome. Now let's look at this. Color blindness is a sex linked gene. A sex linked gene that affects the X chromosome. Sex linked genes usually what affect the X chromosome. Usually affects the X chromosome. Now we have other sex linked genes like baldness, we have albinism, we have hemophilia. So all these are sex linked genes or sex linked traits. So definitely is because the trait is sex linked. Does this fully answer our question? Women do not suffer from color blindness because it's sex linked. Now let's look at this. We have this as the chromosome pair of a woman, and we have this as the chromosome pair of a man. Let me write woman, let me write man. So this is a sex linked trait affecting the X chromosome. Now there's high possibility for this, for the woman, for both X and X to carry. There's high impossibility, not high possibility here. There's high impossibility for both XX to carry the abnormal gene. So imagine only one of them. Let's use this one, this second one. Let's use this one as being abnormal. Let's use it as being abnormal. Let me circle it as purple, so we can see that it's abnormal, right? Circle it as purple as abnormal. So we have this abnormal gene here. Now If it's abnormal, it's going to be what? Recessive. If it's abnormal, it's going to be recessive. Hence, it won't be expressed. It will not be expressed because the normal gene here that is dominant is going to mask the expression of the abnormal gene here. And now let's look at that scenario in the case of a man. Now, if a man has X and a Y chromosome and is sex-linked, that's a X and a Y sex chromosome. Now let's look at this. The X now, if the X is abnormal, it will definitely show, because there is no complementary X that will mask it, because what we have is an X and a Y. So there's no complementary X that will mask it. So therefore, the genes occur on both X and Y chromosome is not the answer. Only men are colorblind. Not only men are colorblind, but the likelihood of a woman suffering it is very, very slim because of the ability of the normal X chromosome to mask the abnormal X chromosome. So you can see the genes are recessive and sex-linked is the answer. I hope we enjoyed this particular video. I hope it was interesting. If it was interesting, what I would want you to do for me now is to what? Is to get the I-Class Simplified UTME video series, where we have detailed solutions to over 600 questions in each JAMB subject. We're not just talking about only science subjects, even art subjects are being handled. Art subjects are being handled. So to get this I-Class Simplified UTME video series, so your child can score 300 and above in JAMB, what you do now is to call the number on your screen or send a WhatsApp text to get yours. Thank you very much for your time. See you in the next video.